Everyone says property is passive income. Last year, from one block of 5 flats that I own, I received over 60 rental statements. I'll show you the actual statements later. Approved maintenance works, signed tenancy agreements, and dealt with compliance updates. That's what passive looked like. Today, I want to show you the reality, not to complain, not to scare you, but so you can understand where the work actually sits. Property isn't passive, but it's not also what people think. And understanding where the work actually happens is the difference between building this properly and feeling constantly frustrated. Section 1, why people call property passive. I think a lot of this comes down to comparison. If you're comparing property to a 9-to-5 job, then yes, it feels passive. You're not clocking in every day, you're not being paid by the hour. But passive doesn't actually mean no work. It means not directly trading time for money. And those things get confused all the time. When people hear passive, they imagine no emails, no decisions, and no responsibility. That's never been true with property. What property really offers is asymmetry. Periods of work followed by long periods of relative quiet. But the work never disappears. Section 2, the reality. One block, 5 flats. Let me make this practical. I'll use one specific example, a block of 5 flats I own, to show you what this actually looks like. The reason I'm using this example is that it's like assuming you have a portfolio of 5 individual flats. So a property portfolio. The block is professionally managed by an agent. So on paper, this should be as passive as property gets. And yet over the last 12 months, I've still responded to emails, reviewed monthly statements, approved maintenance works, made decisions on spend, dealt with compliance updates. None of this is dramatic, none of it is daily, but it is real. Because even with a managing agent, you are still the decision maker. The agent doesn't own the asset, they don't carry the risk, and they don't live with the long-term consequences. You do. Section 3, 23 Essex Road. What passive actually looked like. Let me give you a real example, 23 Essex Road. It was originally a detached house that I converted into 5 flats. Now, once the conversion was complete, most people would assume that the hard part was over. But this is where the reality of passive starts to show up. In the beginning, there was a lot going on. Not chaos, not stress, but constant decision making. First, emails from the agents, rental assessments, agreeing the marketing price, reviewing and signing their terms and conditions. Then I had to provide EPCs, electrical inspection condition reports, gas safety certificates, heating and hot water instructions, appliance manuals, and compliance documents. Every time someone booked a viewing, I was notified. And remember, that's 5 separate flats. Then emails confirming offers, requests to approve tenant referencing, notifications that tenants had passed checks, AST agreements to review and sign, inventories to approve. That was all before anyone even moved in. Then, once the tenants moved in, the nature of the work changed, but it didn't disappear. Every month I receive 5 rental statements. That's 60 statements a year for one block. Each statement shows the rent received, management fee deducted, any repair costs, and the net amount being transferred. I save down the invoices, I reconcile the statements against the company bank account, I check the numbers match, and then there are the normal tenant issues, requests for fitted wardrobes, questions about heater output, reports of no hot water, leaking taps, a leak from an upstairs flat, door closers being too loud. None of this is dramatic, but it's real. And if someone tells you property is completely hands-off, this is what hands-off actually looks like. But here's the important part though. The intensity was front-loaded. Once the flats were tenanted, the systems were in place, and the early issues were resolved, the work reduced significantly. Now it's mostly reviewing statements, approving occasional works, and making strategic decisions. And just to show you that this isn't abstract, this is literally how I run it. Every month I review the rental statement, the management fee, any repair deductions, I reconcile it to the bank, and I log any outstanding issues. I've actually turned this into a simple monthly review system. Nothing fancy, just a structured way of making sure nothing slips through the cracks. If you would like a copy of the exact template I use to review my rental properties month on month, then comment review and I'll send it to you. Because this is what passive really looks like. It's not doing nothing, it's having a system so the decisions become structured. It's not daily, it's not overwhelming, it's periodic. Property isn't passive, it's front-loaded. And once you understand that, you stop expecting it to be effortless and you start treating it like a system. Section 4, what the work actually is. This is the part most people misunderstand. The work in property isn't physical, it isn't constant, and it isn't especially time-consuming, but it is cognitive. It's decision making. You're deciding, is this repair reasonable? Is this quote fair? Do I fix this now or later? Is this short-term or a long-term spend? That's the real job. And that's why two people can own similar properties and get completely different outcomes. The asset might be the same, but the decisions aren't. Section 5, the front-loaded truth. Here's the part I think people really get wrong. Most of the work in property is front-loaded. It happens before you ever receive a pound of rent. You spend time deciding on a strategy, understanding locations, building relationships with agents, attending viewings, analysing deals, negotiating purchases, planning refurbishments, and managing the build phase. That's where the heavy lifting is. And once that's done properly, the nature of the work changes. It becomes quieter, less frequent, and more predictable. Property doesn't suddenly become passive, it becomes stable. Section 6, why this is actually a good thing. Here's the upside people rarely talk about. Most of the front-loaded work costs nothing but time. It doesn't cost anything to look on Rightmove, to speak with agents, to attend viewings, get quotes, or run numbers. You can learn the market before risking capital. That's incredibly rare. In most asset classes, you put in money first and you hope your thinking was right. With property, you can test your thinking before you spend a penny. That's not passive, that's powerful. Section 7, comparison to other asset classes. Think about investing in shares, funds, crypto. You deploy capital and then you wait. You don't control timing, outcomes, or external shocks. Property is different. You influence the asset, the income, the demand, and the quality. Property rewards good decisions, not just patience. But that also means it expects something from you. Section 8, what passive really means in property. It means the work is lumpy, not constant. The effort reduces over time if done properly. You can outsource operations, but not responsibility. Property becomes quieter, not passive. And once you accept that, everything becomes easier. You stop feeling misled, you stop feeling frustrated, and you start treating property like what it really is, a long-term system and not a shortcut. Final takeaway. If you're looking for something that does nothing, property isn't it. But if you're willing to front load the work, think properly, build systems, make good decisions, then property can become one of the most stable and predictable income streams available. The problem isn't that property doesn't work, the problem is that people expect it to work without thinking. If you want more content like this, honest, practical, and focused on how property really works with systems behind it, subscribe.